My name is Jason Moses. I am your instructor for this class, either Lifespan Growth and Development or Human Sexuality. I thought I'd throw together a little orientation about how the class works, or more specifically, how you're going to earn a grade. I'll give you a heads up, it's very low tech, not because I can't figure out technology, but because it's really difficult to flip back and forth between looking at me and looking at a monitor. So instead of showing you a monitor, I have made these cards in which I'm going to show you how the class works. So you're going to earn a grade in this class based on how you do in 5 units. A unit lasts for 3 weeks, and although during the summer a unit lasts for only 2 weeks, a unit lasts for 3 weeks, and over the course of those 3 weeks in each unit, you're going to earn points in certain ways. This shows Unit 1. You can see that this yellow column here is the final Unit 1 score, and I also have columns for Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, and Unit 5, but we're going to focus on just one unit right now. So in each unit, the biggest chunk of your score is going to come from an exam, which is worth anywhere from 0 to 80 points. I think you should expect the exam to be difficult. In my experience, students in my online classes tend to do pretty poor on exams, probably because you don't really have lecture to help you figure out the most important material. I have a different way of figuring out the most important material, but it isn't lecture, and I'll get back to that. The second biggest chunk of every score is going to come from discussions, which are worth up to 20 points in total. I'll talk about discussions coming up in a little bit, but I'll point out that you do not want to lose discussion points. 20 points is a big part of your score. Notice that with the exam being worth 80 points and discussion being worth 20 points, we already have a total of 100 points. Then there are then a number of different assignments, most of which add value to your possible 100 points, although one of them in particular, which I call the study guide assignment, can actually take value away. I'm going to talk about the study guide assignment coming up. Because of all these assignments added on to discussion and exams, you might notice that every unit score is actually worth more than 100 points. Unit 1, for example, is worth 122 points, and that's because Unit 1 has the most assignments. Other units are worth fewer points. Although Unit 1 has 122 points available, these unit scores operate on the usual 100-point scale. So if you were to earn a Unit 1 score of 70 points, you'd be heading for a C in the class, assuming you match that performance in later units. If you were to earn a Unit 1 score of 80 points, then you're heading for a B. And of course, a Unit 1 score of 90 or more points means you're heading for an A in the class, again, assuming you match that performance in later units. I will point out that because later units have fewer points available, it might be difficult to match your Unit 1 performance. I've made the most points available in Unit 1 because I know that right now at the start of the semester, we are all more motivated than we will be later on. You also have to learn how the class works at the same time that you're learning about lifespan growth and development or human sexuality. So Unit 1 is demanding, but it's also a great opportunity. And I hope you'll regard it as a great opportunity. Make sure you go out and earn a lot of points. Now, as you work through Unit 1, I'll give you a heads up. My deadlines are very specific. I do not allow deadline extensions. The only reason I'll give a deadline extension is if a problem is due to me or due to the college. But if you make a mistake or you miss a deadline or you're unable to do something, you might be tempted to write to me and say, "Can I have an extension?" And I'll say, "No way. I just expect you to meet the deadlines." But I realize that in life emergencies happen, so at the end of the semester I will look at your 5 unit scores and I will drop whichever one of them is the lowest. So in these fictitious students, student 1 might end up dropping their Unit 5 score. Student 2 might need to end up dropping their Unit 4 score. This student here, student 4, has a pretty low Unit 1 score, and they might need to drop that score instead. So I'll drop your lowest unit score, but I won't give a deadline extension. Make sure you meet the deadlines. I want to call attention to a couple of students here in particular, fictitious students obviously. Student 1, for example, got a 65 on the 80-point exam, got all 20 discussion points, earned the 5th discussion bonus, did great on the introduction, a pretty easy assignment, did very well on the study guide assignment. We're going to talk about the study guide assignment coming up. You can see I've called special attention to it because the study guide assignment in every unit is the only assignment that you can actually lose points on if you don't complete it. So if a student doesn't do the study guide assignment, like this student here, I'm going to give that student a score of -5. If you blow off the study guide assignment, you get a -5. This student right here, however, earned a -10, and that's because I caught this student cheating. So I reserve a -10 penalty on the study guide assignment for students who cheat. And of course, the way students are going to cheat on the study guide assignment is by using artificial intelligence. So this student right here did mediocre on the exam, but thanks to earning a whole bunch of points, ended up with a 102 Unit 1 score. And remember, this student really only needed 90 points to head for an A in the class. This student down here got a 50 on the exam. That's the equivalent of what, about 65% or so. Got a -10 on the study guide assignment and ended up with a 56. This student is heading for an F, although if this ends up being their lowest score, I'll drop it. This student did similarly poorly. They got a 40 on the exam, which is the equivalent of 50%. Earned only half of their discussion points, which is really too bad. Didn't do the study guide assignment at all and ended up with a score of 50, a Unit 1 score. And that's okay because I might be willing to drop that score. So you can see a number of examples of students who are doing well and doing poorly. At the end of the semester, I will compare your 5 unit scores, drop whichever one of them is lowest, and calculate the average of the remaining 4. That becomes your grade. I want to talk about a couple things I've called attention to here. First of all, I'll repeat it. Deadlines are absolute. You can ask for a deadline extension, but unless you can convince me that your problem is my fault, I'm not going to give you one. You have to meet the deadlines. The best way to meet the deadlines is to do your work early. You have typically about a week to do activities in the class. You know, for example, in the first week, you have to submit 2 discussions. You should be getting started on the Respondus practice test. There's the introduction assignment. You have a week to do it. Deadlines always fall on Sunday, but if you're putting off your work till Sunday, first of all, I think you're going to do poorly. You're going to submit poor quality work. And second, if you have some kind of emergency that prevents you from completing that activity, then you're going to be in trouble. I want to talk about the textbook as well. You have already paid for your textbook as part of your tuition. This is called a first day access book. So what that means is that as soon as you log into the class, you already have access to your book. Now, I have to admit, the way that you gain that access depends on which class you're in, so I can't really talk about that very much. I'm also a little uncertain in one of the classes how students gain access to that book. But I'll point out that although you have paid for your book with your tuition, you still have the option to opt out of the book. Now, if you opt out of the book, that means that you'll have to get your hands on the book in some other way. I promise you, you will need the book. You absolutely need the book. The exams, of course, are based on the book. The readings are based on the book. Your ability to do some of the assignments, especially the study guide assignment, the one that might be worth as many as -10, all of this stuff is based on the book. So if you don't have the book, you're going to find yourself in trouble. and you have to have the correct edition of the correct book. In the Human Sexuality book, the current book is called Our Sexuality Enhanced, and it has to include that word in the title. If it doesn't, you have the wrong book, the readings aren't going to make any sense, and you're going to be in a great deal of trouble. So make sure you have the right book. Get the one that is provided with the class. What else about the textbook? I guess that's it. Okay, I might get back to that. Let's talk about the difference between assignments and discussions. I use the words assignments and discussions meaning different things. So when I talk about assignments, it has this collection of rules and deadlines. When I talk about discussions, there's a different collection of rules and deadlines. I suggest that you should really be careful with the words assignments and discussions. A lot of times students use them interchangeably, but be careful with them. Remember, in every unit, students have access to 20, maybe as many as 22 discussion points by completing discussions. The first 2 of your discussions are due within the first week of the unit, ending Sunday night at about midnight. You should really get those discussions out of the way first, though. Discussions are tricky. They're tricky especially because, well, frankly, students like to have AI write their discussions for them. You're going to find yourself in trouble if you're using artificial intelligence at all. The other reason they're tricky is because of what I call my substantive sentences requirement. In order to earn points, a discussion must be at least 4 lengthy and substantive sentences. A substantive sentence is one that adds something new to the discussion. It doesn't talk about what the previous poster had said. It doesn't congratulate them for having said it. It doesn't agree with them for having said it. It really provides something new. Most of your discussions should be based on your own personal experiences and your own personal opinions. As you look at a discussion that you're writing, look at the pronouns. If you find that your discussion has a lot of second person you pronouns, you, yours, your, stuff like that, then you're talking about your classmate too much. And if you're talking about your classmate, then you're not providing new material. Your discussion instead should have a lot more first person pronouns. I, me, my, our, stuff like that. So read the discussion instructions addendum at the end of the syllabus. Take great care with the discussions. I'll be providing a lot of feedback about discussions. I'll tell you how in a little while. Assignments, on the other hand, are mostly based on the book. In every unit, I tend to have at least one easy assignment. It's one in which you kind of talk about your own opinions and experiences of things. But every unit also has that study guide assignment. That's the one that can earn you a score of anywhere from -10 to +10. You want to be very careful, of course, to end up on the plus side of that range. In the study guide assignment, I have provided 10 short essay questions that are based on the book. Now, out of those 10 questions, you are going to choose 5, and you're going to provide me with written answers to those 5 questions. Your written answers to those 5 questions, again, they're short essay questions. So when I think of a short essay question, I think of an answer that's anywhere from, at least a third of a page if you were to print it out, to at most about a full page. So this study guide assignment is 5 short essay questions. It's a serious assignment, it's time consuming, and you should do it broken down over a couple days. If you try to do the study guide assignment all at once, you're going to be really disgusted with yourself, or more likely disgusted with me. And it's not my fault that you tried to put it off. I suggest that when you get to work on the study guide assignment, you answer 1 or 2 questions a day, taking care with them, doing a good job. Now, those 10 study guide assignment questions really focus on what I regard as the most important information. And you can imagine that that most important information would be in the exam. So the exam is based on the material covered by those 10 short essay questions. But keep in mind you're only going to answer 5 of them. So my advice to you as you're preparing for the exam is find the parts of the book in which those 10 short essay questions are answered and focus your study on that material. I think that will help you do well in the class. Let's talk about, again, discussions a little bit more. So in every unit, the student is going to submit at least 4 discussions. There's a 5th discussion bonus as well, although you should read the discussion instructions addendum about it. I really ask that you pay attention to the discussion instructions addendum at the end of the syllabus. You're going to submit 4 discussions, maybe 5, maybe more, although you're only going to earn points for 5. You're going to earn 5 points for each of them, 5, 10, 15, 20 points. There's an additional 5th discussion bonus of 2 points. The first 2 of your 4 discussions are due within the first week of the unit. So today is probably, Monday or Tuesday of the week, and you have your first 2 discussions due by the upcoming Sunday night. Make sure that they're good discussions. I'll point out also, you can submit more than 2 discussions. That might be a good idea, because you can submit all 4 discussions in the first week and get them out of the way, and that gives you all sorts of opportunities. So do at least 2, but maybe do more. Especially if I reject one of your discussions, it's good if you did more than the minimum 2, because then you have some additional discussions. So in the first week, you're going to submit 2 of your 4 discussions. Over the rest of the unit, the remaining 2 weeks, you're going to submit 2 more for a total of 4, and maybe you'll submit a 5th one to earn the 5th discussion bonus. Again, there are certain rules that go along with that. Remember, in your discussions, you are not talking about what your classmates said. You are not paraphrasing the book. Rather, you're talking about yourself. In the study guide assignment, on the other hand, you are paraphrasing the book. So let's talk about a common problem in both discussions and assignments. It's kind of a recent problem, and it is students who use artificial intelligence. I regard the use of artificial intelligence as cheating, and I run almost everything through our AI detectors. If our AI detectors are in agreement that a substantial portion or some portion of your answer was written by artificial intelligence, I'm going to take their word for it, and I'm going to give you a 0 for that assignment or discussion. Now, in the case of discussions, if you earn that 0, you won't have an opportunity to make it up. You've just taken a 0. That's true of assignments as well, come to think of it. I am really against the use of artificial intelligence, and I'm on the lookout for it. I expect that you will do your own writing. You should do your own writing. What else? So you submitted an assignment or a discussion and you wonder how many points you earned on it. You should be on the lookout for my feedback. When students submit a study guide assignment, it takes me a while to correct them all, and I'll eventually send a probably lengthy message telling you how many points you earned and why. But in other assignments and in the discussions, I'll provide feedback. And feedback comes in 2 ways. For the assignments, for example, you want to go to the grade book, and you'll find a symbol that indicates that feedback has been provided. If that symbol is gray, or if it isn't there at all, that means I haven't given any feedback. But if the symbol is lavender or purple, that means I've told you how many points you've earned, I told you what you did right or wrong. You should be on the lookout for that little lavender symbol. Now, in discussions, I provide feedback in another way as well. Sometimes I will actually edit into your discussion my feedback about the discussion. I call this professor's feedback. It'll be at the bottom of your discussion. I'll just edit it in. It will also be in lavender font, and it tells you what you did wrong or what you did right. At the start of the semester, I try to provide as much positive feedback as possible, but boy, am I providing a lot of feedback. And as the semester goes along, the positive feedback tends to trickle away, and the negative feedback is something I'm more likely to spend time on. My real hope is that as you read your classmates' discussions, you'll learn from their mistakes, because I've told your classmates that they made mistakes. Now, I give some leeway at the beginning of the semester, but as the semester goes by, you need to do your discussions right. And I typically give only like one what I call freebie per student, where I give points for a discussion that really shouldn't earn points. I think that's about what I have prepared for you. I tried to keep this short. Again, a couple really important lessons are: do not use artificial intelligence to do your writing. Do your own writing. Another important point is to pay careful attention to the discussion instructions. They're at the end of the syllabus. They tell you the right and wrong way to do discussions. I want to say this, back to the issue of artificial intelligence, AI. A lot of times students will use AI to do their study guide, assignment. That's the one that's worth anywhere from -10 to +10. Again, if I discover you using AI, you're going to earn a low score, perhaps in the negative range, perhaps as low as -10. But I do, on the other hand, encourage you to use Grammarly to write your answers. So what you should do is you should write your answer on your own, using Word or whatever word processing program you like. And then you'll copy your answer, paste it into Grammarly, and look for a good score. Now, what you want is for Grammarly to give your answer a score of at least 70, or better yet, 80 points. If you were to earn a score of 70, you're going to earn a positive score for the answer, but a score of 80, on the other hand, will give you a better score, a perfect score of +2. I would also ask you, as you're preparing the study guide assignment, read the study guide assignment's rubric. It's a very lengthy document, for which I apologize, but it has important information. You'll find that study guide assignment's rubric in the resources folder. One last thing to point out in the resources folder, I have another video there as well called the environment check demonstration. It tells you the way that you will prepare your environment when you sit down to take a test in Respondus. Most of you will be testing in Respondus at your own home or wherever. But in order to do that, I'm going to be watching you through your webcam. So there you need to use the Respondus Lockdown Monitor, the Respondus Lockdown Browser. And you have to be careful to make sure that you're not doing anything that I might regard as suspicious. So I require that you clear your table, that you sit in a chair, that you not be interrupted, stuff like that. Again, you'll find all this information in the testing instructions document. That's in the resources folder. But I also urge you to watch that other video that I prepared for you, again titled the Environment Check Demonstration. I think that's all I have for you in the way of a orientation. If this were a normal semester or whatever, if I thought that students would come, I would give a much more lengthy orientation meeting, but this works good for this. So I hope you found something useful in there. Probably get to work soon. Start thinking about posting a discussion especially. Bye-bye.